Hello and welcome to Cornish Walking Trails. Today we're in SALTASH.
I'm never guessing.
Behind me is the iconic Brunel Bridge, the Royal Albert Bridge that brings the main train line into Cornwall. And we're going to take a look at that era. We're going to go back in time and have a nostalgic look at SALTASH. SALTASH is near Plymouth. It's on the Cornwall side of the Tamar River, right on the border. The river or waterway was for centuries a great highway for all the traffic of the period prior to the 19th century development of roads and railways. Today we will be taking a look at how those bridges came about, particularly the rail bridge. Two bridges are so tall above you, constant noise from the lorries where the bridge hits the land, and it dwarfs these houses. They are awesome, incredible. The older one, for its feat of engineering alone, is well, I'm lost for words really.
Sarah, I am a Cornish person. I'm a Celt. I was born in Cornwall. The River Tamar defines our border with England. It's 60 miles long. If it was 4 miles longer, we'd be an island. By bridging the gap, Brunel joined England to Cornwall. Now, what did he want to go and do that for?
The rail bridge was designed by Isambard Kingdom Brunel. It was completed in 1859 and opened by Prince Albert on the 2nd of May of that year. It cost £230,000. The track is 100 foot above water level to allow access to the upper Tamar to larger vessels within the Admiralty. The central pier is on solid bedrock and measures 260 feet from foundation to summit. It was built using a large cylinder or caisson sunk 70 feet below the water to remove 20 feet of mud in order to find bedrock desired by Brunel. This is the smallest crossing point of the River Tamar, which is why they chose this point to build a connection. Also, the central pillar had to be on solid bedrock. They used a caisson to start removing the debris at the bottom of the riverbed until they found hard rock. It was the only way they could get this structure to link Devon and Cornwall.
It's only when you're here, looking up at the bridge, you actually realise how incredible it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's
feat of engineering, isn't it? And it's a long time, 165 years old now, this bridge. And it's still completely usable. You've got the trains going over quite regularly.
Fully functioning.
Fully functioning. And what I didn't know was, you might have already alluded to this, but all of the engineering really is in that middle section. That's the key for this bridge staying up.
There's some old photos of when it was being built, and it actually shows that it was jacked up gradually. Here's a section from an old book about SALTASH by a mayor called Porter. Let's read that out now. Each span was floated to the centre of the river and rested at the height of the tide upon the first 6-foot joints of the 2 iron columns in the middle of the stream on one side and the beginning of the pier of masonry at the water's edge on the other. Twice every week the whole span was lifted in one day 3 feet. When the masonry was built up another 3 feet in 3 days, then the span got lifted as before, making its total upward progress 6 feet per week. He's basically saying it took a week to go up 6 feet.
Yeah, and I think it's 100 foot high is where the carriageway would be for the trains. It had to be so high because the Admiralty insisted upon it to get the big boats underneath.
Well, the river's still quite wide here, and there's a lot upstream, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I expect you also had cow stock needed quite large barges and get things out up to market, up to Covent Garden.
Yeah,
so it makes sense.
This would have been quite a unique construction, I would have thought. It would have been groundbreaking, isn't it? And the thing I found really interesting was with that was it was opened in May of 1859, but Brunel by that stage was really poorly. He was really ill.
Wasn't he?
Yeah, apparently I think he was in Switzerland when the bridge was officially opened.
Yeah.
But just a few days later he was back and they brought him across the bridge on an open wagon.
Oh, did
Yeah, so that he could see it. The bridge opened in the May of 1859, and I think he died in the September.
Oh gosh, yes, that's not long after, is it? But it's a, what a legacy.
Yeah.
There's a train coming over.
There
Must
is,
just film it.
I've got to film that. Do you think that vibrates a lot?
I'm no engineer, but I do recall at the back of my mind somewhere seeing a programme, and they said if you go over a bridge quickly, it causes vibration and it destabilises the bridge, but if you go over slowly, you've got much more chance of it surviving. I didn't appreciate until I came here today is just how far into Saltash and how many piers there are after the river. It goes on for quite a while. You know, you kind of think, oh, it's a bridge, don't you? And that's it. But there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 piers, 9 more piers after the bridge.
I've got a funny story about one of these piers. I don't think you know about this.
What?
I was reading, I'll see if I can dig the article out, but I think this was in the 1950s.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah,
there was,
100 years after it was built,
there's a street which goes underneath one of the piers. We'll try and find it now. I think it's called Silver Street. I don't think there's any houses there anymore. I think they all got. I think it was a lot of slum clearances. And,
okay.
A lot of this was rebuilt. But one of the houses that was there in the 1950s, a train went over the top. Basically, one of these great big bricks, one of the stones, was dislodged.
No!
Came flying down, and it's when people had outdoor toilets.
Oh no!
Yeah, and it went through the roof of this family's outdoor toilet, and it completely smashed their bath. Right, and they weren't very happy about it.
No.
Right, and they basically complained, and there was an official statement from the railways. I'll see if I can find it. I'll read it out now. Basically, the railways said, well, nobody was hurt. Didn't matter. It was fine.
Gosh.
No train stopped running.
Wouldn't happen today.
It would it?
No.
Get up now. I found it, Sarah. It was a lady called Mrs. Budge and her family.
Okay.
So it starts off, it said, Mrs. Budge said she and her children spent a lot of time in the wash house, which is only a few feet from their home. And it goes on to say, on rainy days, the children spend long periods sailing toy boats in the bath in the wash house. It was lucky this did not happen last week. We had visitors then, and the wash house was in use nearly all day long. We often get small stones falling down, but nothing like this has ever happened before.
So how big was this stone?
It was £80.
Oh goodness
Yeah,
me,
huge.
so it was big.
Yeah, so an official of the British Railways commented, it is true that a small piece of stone which had become weathered fell off and pierced a corrugated iron roof. Limestone gets a bit scaly, and it is the kind of thing that is liable to happen anywhere. The bridge, originally built by Isambard Kingdom Brunel, is constantly inspected, but after all it is almost 100 years old. It was only a small piece of stone, but falling from that height it was bound to penetrate. Train services were not delayed. So he didn't even apologise. I think she was trying to sue him for a bit of money.
Yeah.
She wanted a new bath.
Yeah. As a minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another story that I remember hearing about this bridge, there was a cat that managed to get up onto the top of one of the piers, and the fire brigade had to come out and rescue it. It just sat there meowing and couldn't get back down again. The thing is, I can't even imagine how it would get up there. Poor little thing. Thank you so much to everybody that's donated a coffee recently, and as usual, we'll run your names up here. We are very grateful for your help. Do you think you could live here in Saltash?
No, I'd be a bit worried.
Why's that?
Well, I might catch something.
Why?
Devon's over there, isn't it? If the wind's in the wrong direction. They do some funny things with pasties. I've heard a rumour they put carrots in them, and God knows what they do with the cream teas. They get it all completely wrong.
Didn't you read a story about how the devil wouldn't come into Cornwall? Because how does the story go?
It was basically, he was being rowed across, and halfway across he asked the boatman about Cornish pasties and what went in them, and basically the boatman said they put basically anything in a Cornish pasty, and there's a rumour they might even put the devil in the Cornish pasty if he decided to come to Cornwall. The devil wasn't very happy about that. He scuppered back across to Devon again.
Long before the railway arrived, people had been crossing the Tamar River.
A royal grant in 1385 allowed Saltash to operate a ferry, collecting proceeds of the ferry boat.
In fact, Saltash was a borough town long before Plymouth was established, and Porter writes, as regards the antiquity of Saltash, there is an old couplet, Saltash was a borough town when Plymouth was a fuzzy down. With so many people crossing at this point, inevitably writers and artists passed this way.
Daniel Defoe wrote in 1724, we passed the Tamar over a ferry at Saltash, the first town we set foot on in Cornwall. The Tamar here is wide, and the ferry boat's bad, so that I thought myself well escaped when I got safe on shore. Is that pub behind you, Sarah? I'm not sure if it is a pub, it might be a restaurant.
It's a Spanish restaurant.
Is it? Hispania. Oh yeah, clues there, isn't it?
It's
1595.
Yes, it used to be a bigger building, and it features in a painting by Turner.
In 1811, Turner painted this image of the gateway into Saltash, which has been, sadly, partially knocked down, although this is thought to be what remains.
Another traveller called Stockdale, he came to Cornwall in 1824. He visited Saltash and described it.
It is a place, owing to the steep ascent on which it is situated, every shower washes clean.
Presumably he's talking about the horse muck. He also mentions the ferry and how the corporation were entitled to the proceeds together with markets and other incomes totalling £300 per annum in 1714. The ferry crossing was indeed socially and financially important to Saltash. The crossing played an important role in both World Wars. This photo shows troops in World War I leaving, and here the photo had to be doctored to remove the Royal Albert Bridge so that the World War II embarkation location was kept secret. At first the ferry was rowed by oarmen, and for a short time it was propelled by steam, but this was replaced in favour of a chain-link ferry or floating bridge. By 1950 the queues for the Saltash ferry became unacceptable and plans were drawn up for a road bridge crossing. It was opened in 1961 to approximately 4,000 vehicles per day. So before the bridge, the road bridge, opened in 1961, there was a chain link ferry at this point, being the narrowest point, and it went from just here, there's a slipway there, went across the river over to St Budeaux. Obviously it's no longer there, but there was quite a fanfare when it closed. On the last ferry service to leave, the mayor of Saltash was on board, and they were quite solemn. I think they were quite sad to lose it. It must have been quite a good money spinner for them. And of course it did bring traffic through Saltash. Now with the new bridge, it goes around the town. So perhaps they were a bit sad at the loss of income and status with the new bridge coming in.
This plaque commemorates the closing of the ferry across the River Tamar at Saltash on the 23rd day of October 1961 after more than 700 years of service.
Oh, there's some reminiscences about the old ferry, and it says the ferry chain used to break sometimes and the queue would be put back past Dawes Creamery, said Dennis. The chaps used to come round and take the money, and it was "Alright me handsome, alright me lover." That's Elspeth. This might well sum up what was lost. It says a part of Saltash is gone. Until then, everybody knew everybody. On the 23rd of October 1961, the pulse of the waterside stopped.
This road here, it's called the Old Ferry Road.
Yes,
And there's a plaque on the wall. Did you see it then?
No.
Well, it said it basically the ferry stopped running in 1961, which I think you've just filmed on this little display. This is nice, isn't it?
It's commemorating the ferry.
700 years that ferry was in operation for. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I read in the book that we're using today, that book by the mayor around
Porter.
Yeah,
yes.
It's called Around Saltash, isn't it? The reason that they wanted the railway bridge built was really to do away with the need for crossing on the ferry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the point of the railway bridge.
And then when cars came in, of course, that's after the train, wasn't it? And then you had the road bridge built, and that's it.
Yeah.
No more ferry.
Yeah. Gosh, it really was an end of an era, wasn't it? Those photos are amazing, isn't it, of that last ferry crossing?
It probably provided quite a lot of employment and a bit of a community down here. If you went into Plymouth, everybody would use the ferry. So from here, you can kind of make out that the ferry came across underneath that terrace of 4 houses. So let's just go and see if we can find that. This is the slipway that the ferry used, and it's dead across the water there, the cluster of the same 4 houses. So that's where the other slipway is. This is where it crossed. Nothing here really to tell you, is there? Perhaps this was something to do with the anchoring of the chain link. Gosh, it's all gone.
This is a schedule of tolls crossing on the ferry.
Yes.
This is from December 1957.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you had a traction engine, not exceeding 5 tons, 6 shillings.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
But a dog could go on for a penny.
Number 5. Oh, I see it here. Number 5. Each dog a penny.
Yeah. And what is an auto cycle with rider? Is that a motorbike?
I don't know, because you've got a motorcycle there.
Yeah.
If you know what an auto cycle is, how it differs from a motorcycle, please share.
My favourite, number 13. A hearse with or without a coffin. 3 shillings.
3 shillings. Oh my goodness me, why is that any different to a vehicle?
Brilliant.
Look, each head of cattle, 6
pence, yes.
That's amazing. It is just comprehensive, isn't it? That is, I could sit here all day and look at that and I'd be bewildered. And if you find yourself with hours to spare in Saltash, why not visit Mary Newman's cottage? It's thought to be 500 years old, and it has a really interesting history. The story tells us that Drake comes sailing back with a small fortune, enters the church, and she says, "Oh, I can't marry you. Drake has returned. I must marry him." She becomes mayor of Plymouth. Oh.
I have returned. Where is Mary?
Or Elliot's shop, both run by the Tamar Protection Society, and wonderful places to visit. I am in a time capsule. This is a shop frozen in time in Saltash, and I don't know where to look first. There's a video on our channel about this shop, and if you haven't already caught it, why not check it out?
Yeah, fantastic. Yes. Hi, nice to meet you. Cheers.
I've enjoyed our nostalgic look at Saltash. It's a lovely town, isn't it?
It's a town packed with heritage, isn't it? Well, which I was surprised at, but when you think about it, there's been a town here for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's a strategic point, isn't it? It's a place where Cornwall and Devon meet. Yeah. I suppose having the 2 bridges here is so much history.
Yes, yeah, and I've really enjoyed exploring how the bridge was built, how the ferry came to an end, which obviously had a huge impact on the community. If you find yourself in Saltash, there's a blue plaque trail as well, which we might come back and do one day.
Yeah, just don't zoom through to get to, you know, down to St Ives or Padstow or something. Take a moment, just park up in Saltash and spend an hour just having a wander around.
So until next time, we're going to say goodbye. So,
bye.